I saw this story and I started reading it and I thought, oh my gosh, I am guilty of some of these things. Eggshell parenting is one of these things that I didn't know existed, but apparently it is a very big thing, and seems like a thing that a lot of people are probably doing. It says when children are forced to deal with somebody who maybe can go from being unbelievably supportive to all of a sudden being very, let's say, emotional or having emotional outburst. Now, this could come in the fact of name-calling, gaslighting, accusation, threats, even in some places it says destroying possessions. Children oftentimes then have to deal with this. I have to tiptoe or I have to be walking on eggshells when dealing with the parent, and apparently this can have long-lasting impacts on their emotional health. So joining us is Dr. Vince Callahan. He is a mental health expert who has more than 3 decades of experience in both private practice and inpatient hospital settings. Good morning, Dr. Callahan.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. So tell me about what exactly is eggshell parenting.
Well, eggshell parenting is when, just like you described it, when that parent has an emotional outburst or they really operate the home by a sense of fear, and it creates anxiety and depression in kids. So if I'm 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, and I don't know what kind of reaction my mom or dad's going to have to the next situation, I'm anxiously awaiting that shoe to drop to see what's going to happen and how I've got to respond. So it really can have long-lasting effects on mental health in kids and teenagers and even young adults.
Yeah,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to say the problem that kind of scared me or that made me start thinking about myself in certain situations was it talked about how this person can also be incredibly loving and supporting, but it's just like you said, when let's say a child drops something or there's a situation that is thrown into the household, them not knowing how you will handle it can lead to, like you said, them being anxious trying to figure out how you're going to respond.
Absolutely. And so that's the problem here is that you've got a loving parent, and parents love their kids. I get that. But we all came from somewhere, and most of us operate in our own family systems, how we were part of a family.
Yes.
And what we saw growing up. We do exactly what we saw. So, for instance, for me, my father was one of those that if you didn't say the right thing or do the right thing, there could be problems and be trouble. And so I grew up with that whole, do I say the right thing and what do I do and what do I not do and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And
I was just going to say it makes me think of, certain friends we all had. I mean, and that had what you perceive to be very level-headed parents. And I would say that those people who seem to have had those level-headed parents who even behind closed doors seemed to kept an even keel or were either one way or the other, they seem to come out, I would say, more normal.
They do, and the root of all of this is how do you attach, because when you attach and have a healthy attachment, secure attachment relationship with parents, it creates self-confidence, high self-esteem, and you can navigate life. When this eggshell parenting happens where you don't know what's going to happen or when that shoe's going to drop, it does create what's called an insecure attachment style. It affects your relationships, how you see the world, how you problem solve. It's a pretty big deal.
What can parents do if they're, let's say, constantly finding themselves kind of on the just emotional spectrum?
Well, I'm going to say the first and foremost thing is to get help, because this usually stems from their own issues. I'll go back to my dad. My dad was raised in a farm in Virginia, and his father used a horsewhip on him to discipline.
Right.
Well, that, of course, impacted him. So the biggest thing you got to do, you got to get some help. You got to talk to somebody and say, hey, this is who I am and what I do and how I run my family system, and I need help. Because otherwise you're just going to create the same generation happening over again.
Dr. Vince Callahan, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us about this.
Thank you so much.